It was at this moment that he knew. He fucked up.
Hello and welcome. So a change of plans later, and I was on my way to make my little candle. I call him the human being because it is made of you and it is shaped into a human. I'll make a second video where I am making a more female shape. This is a request of my girlfriend to make him a partner. Originally, this was supposed to be for my exhibition in May of next year. I might still bring it, but my girlfriend has insisted that it is hers. Now, even though the video is going quite fast, you might notice that it's starting and stuttering. I discovered after making this that the pull cable of my lathe was old and worn out. So simply the rubber had given too much away. Um, and that is an issue. It's actually quite a large issue. Second issue, because of the whole weeble wobble thing that happened before, the the coal in the sitting on the actuator was actually wobble loose. I found out this afterwards, but that is part of why it's stuttering. It's only small stutters now, but later when I tried to work with it, it did bigger stutters. So because of the stuttering, I was quick to focus on getting a point narrowed down so I could just mount it in a normal fashion. So I could mount it with my chuck and then press against it with my dock, and then I can get it down to size. I thought at this point that it was because of uh, it not being firmly grasped that it was wobbling as crazy as it did, but turned out it was just poor lathe that was having some issues. Also, this piece of yew is quite crooked and we wobbling, but it's still a nice piece, and you can see actually how much of a difference there is because it's grown the way it has. Yew is one of my favorite woods to turn, even though it is toxic. Both the fruit of the yew tree and also the dust is poisonous. Of course, dust is never good for you, but dust of the yew tree is more poisonous than normal dust. When it is just standing around, it's not poisonous at all, but the dust is quite poisonous. So basically, just going down to size with my roughing gouge, and later I'll put in my skew chisel to make the shapes. This is all very nice and standard. That's also why it's just 6 times speed, just to watch the shavings come off. Before I started doing this, I had sharpened my roughing gouge, but I hadn't sharpened it well enough on my Tormek. My second video that'll come up after this, well, next video that'll come up after this, I am making several um, sticks for planting, well, different bulbous plants. So we call bulbous plants in Danish onions, even though they're not onions, but the bulb looks like an onion. This is a different part of the day we changed to. In general, this project took a couple of days of going back and forth. I don't work full time on this, so it's just when I have an hour or two. All in all, this project took me about 2 3 hours, about 3 hours in total. Fascinating to watch the video where you can see that it looks like it's stopping and cutting, but because of the natural sunlight and the artificial light and the speed up, it makes it look like it's stopping while I'm cutting. but it doesn't. It's actually quite a fascinating optical illusion. So yew is, well, it's in the pine family, and it's both soft and it's hard. That's why it's quite fascinating to work with. And the way it grows is just, it gives these amazing colors, and when you put oil on it, it's just even more clear. It's even interesting that when you have glue on it, on the ends, when you dry it, it oxidizes and it looks purple, purplish pink, which is very fascinating to look at. So shape is coming down, and now I'm just trying to determine where to put his legs and put his stomach. My idea is to try and get it to look a little like a human, so at a glance you can see it's supposed to be a human at least. It's also why I later bring out my carving chisels and I make an indentation so it looks like he has legs. Now I could have stopped before I made this chisel work that took some time, but it adds a nice feature to it, and I think it's something I'll actually continue to do if I make more of these, well, human being candles. I like making candles, and because candles are, well, you can shape them so they're a little bit of sculpture, but it's a sculpture that actually serves a purpose. I've never fully understood sculptures that are just for, well, sculpture's sake. It's nice to have something pretty to look at, but if the pretty thing has a function as well, that's even better. It's also why nice bowls are so highly praised, because, well, you can use them to contain items and they're pretty to look at the same time. In another video I talked about another wood in the family of yew. This is also in a pine family, but also slow growth tree. It's Danish, we call it tuya. I will look up the Latin name for it for a later video when I work with it. But it's also a wood that is slow grown, used in hedges, and in my opinion they are amazing. Most people love their walnut and all these other things, but me personally, I just love yew tree and all these other, well, pines. The yew tree is highly praised in wood turning. It's not an underappreciated wood for of any stretch of the imagination. But I would like to see it used more. Uh, it used to be a more common wood because you used it in longbows. I have seen people in Denmark start making longbows out of yew and ash. So now the rough shape has taken place. Now I'm just refining it, and when we refined it, you can see I've made the shape on the foot so it can be mounted inside the chuck. Because when I mount it in the chuck, then I can drill out the hole for the candle holder. But before we do that, some light sanding. I sand it to about 400 grit. Might be a bit too much, but rather have it a little soft so it's nice and comfy when you move it. Also, yew is the kind of wood that's really appreciative of sanding. The more you sand it and the finer grit you do it, the more amazing the colors will be. You can see every time I sand it, it just becomes more and more intense in the color. It has these nice, well, it has all the tones of pine. You have the very light tone, you have the very dark orange tone of pine, which looks like normal construction lumber when it's been out in UV and with oil for a couple of years. As we go about sanding it, I'll also turn up the details. Now you'll notice I both sand while the lathe is running, and then I stop it and I'll sand with the grain. Now the grain direction for you is a bit strange sometimes, so you just have to be patient with it. That's also why the sanding process can take a while. You can see I turn it around and you can see there are some places that need more attention, so I'll give them more attention. And I'm running my fingers down to really feel what it feels like, and I also do it as to measure. So here I'm feeling out so I can carve out his legs, and then this is just the initial carving of it. When I was looking for where to put it, I was looking at where it had the most continuation on the sides, and also where it would fit best with the head and the face, to make it look like he was actually wearing pants and that his arm had some features that looked like it. So these white spots are also slightly visible on the other side, so that makes him look like a standing man. I had considered making arms for him, so turning a round dowel and cutting it in half and then gluing it on either side. But in this case, I decided that less is more, and the idea that you can look at this and wonder, is it supposed to look like a man? Well, most certainly, seeing it as a man, well, that is a good thing. I was debating for a long time whether or not to split at his feet as well, but I decided to do that just to further show the point that it was actually his feet and his legs. Otherwise the groove might just look like any old groove. Now I'm sawing off the head with my little fine saw. Mount it, and then we drill. It's just a standard Forstner bit. And here as well, the engine problems are becoming prevalent and annoying for me because of the issues. The transmission was running on two separate gears and running crooked. It's also why the engine didn't really enjoy doing this. So hopefully now it will be easier to drill because I can go at a slower pace that I'll prefer much more. There is another issue that's gonna happen after I've drilled it, and that is the wood will actually, even though it's bone dry, it'll actually hit itself, as we say in Danish. It'll crack. It'll make these annoying cracks, and you can see them here as well when it's paused sometimes. I chose to work with the cracks, put in glue, and put in not bronze powder, but another powder. Brass, that's the word. Put in brass powder along the cracks, and this was just to do a bit like the Japanese with, I think it's called kitsugi, where you just draw attention to the errors instead of saying, "Oh well, fuck me, I messed up again." No, we take the mistakes and we make them more obvious. Sadly for me, I had lots of time to work at this day, and so I had to wait a little. I also chose to burn, as I've shown before, with my wire and my leather, just to give these nice cuts. Like, here's the throat, here's the separation between the body and the legs, and then just more and more sanding. The annoying thing with the glue is that you have to really, really sand a lot to get the glue out, which is annoying after you have sanded. But it's something you can work with. And in the end, I'm quite happy with the result of the glue with the brass. I always wait until the hole has cooled off before I attempt to put in the fitting for the candle, because the problem is if it's too hot, then it will stick on the way, which is just super annoying. And here I just use the lathe to help press it in, and it should be a tight enough fit that it will stick there. Sometimes I do use glue, and I prefer to use glue just for safety's sake, but if it gets too hot anyway, the glue will expand and push it out sometimes, which I've tried and it's really an inconvenience. So there are these marks that you can see from the glue which have gone into the fibers. Then now it's just a job of trying to get them out as much as possible. Some of them will be there after I have put my finish on it, but that's just the way it is. An alternative thing would be to take my wood turning tools and run it over them. The issue there is I don't really want to run my steel over brass filling. It might not do anything for my steel, but it might also actually cause some slight erosion of the material, or scratches on my steel, which would be annoying to have to fix. I love sharpening my tools as much as the next man, but I don't want to have to do it all the time. I sharpen my tools between projects, and that's as much as I prefer to do it. I will sharpen before doing finishing passes with my scraper or something like that. But if I'm mainly working with my my roughing gouge, well then I'll just sharpen the roughing gouge in the start and then work from there. Uh, Often that'll leave a nice enough surface, or if it's a large long project, well then I'll sharpen it again later. Now it gets a nice coat of Danish oil. And already you can see the colors are just popping out, and it's just amazing. When it gets the wax finish later, it really just shines. And then after some days exposed to some sunlight, it'll be darker still and change in the shape and colors. Here I decided that I wanted to make quite clear where the legs are supposed to divide and where the feet are. So I took out my saw and gently, while holding it in my hand, sawed out where I wanted the divide to be. So at a slight angle, so it became a nice big gap, and then just took a chisel and chopped out the space between them. So thanks for watching another of my videos. I hope you have a great and amazing day. And you're always welcome to watch another one of my small projects.